1. For reference, this took place back in the late 90s. I'd imagine school systems work much different at the high school level now, and my kids aren't that old yet. Okay, so it was my senior year of high school, and I had just enough credits in my junior year to graduate. Yay! I had taken martial arts, and taught it too, so I got an extra gym credit early. Yeah. I changed my mind because I wanted to graduate with my friends. So I just loaded up my schedule that year with whatever I wanted, or I thought would look good to colleges. A few AP courses like US Gov, Physics, Anatomy, and Physiology, and some random stuff. The APs were a lot of work, and I had good test scores from last year already, and I wasn't looking to get lower scores on classes I didn't care about, so I dropped Physics Gov and a random Jewelry 2 class. So I had 3 open periods a day surrounding lunch. It was magical, and I still had 1 AP class, so I thought I wasn't messing around too much. Both my parents worked, so we didn't know anything was amiss, till we realized we had a broken answering machine again. It was the 90s. Apparently, my school was calling 3 times a day, every day, to tell us I wasn't showing up to some study hall class I had been assigned to after I dropped the few classes. This hadn't happened other years, as it would just be a free period. The funny part was the woman calling us was kind of a bitch about it. After the first few days, the messages started to get nasty, yet no one said one word to me in school, or was anything sent home. This is also around the time my mom was starting her retirement from being a hairstylist, so she'd do like a week on and a week off, and now she was getting the calls. She tells the woman she's okay with it, his grades are good, technically he could have graduated already. College apps are already out. No biggie. Oh, that was apparently the wrong thing to say to this lady, 'cause she read my mom the riot act, going on about how irresponsible we all are and how she was personally going to tank my applications. How could I be so brazen, etc., 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 etc. Crazy level of overreaction. Plus, she wouldn't stop calling for every single class despite my parents' approval, repeated calls to the school, and eventually they showed up face to face. It was by law that they had to report unpre-approved truancy. So my mom sat down on it. They wouldn't accept their word over the phone or even face-to-face that I was allowed to leave, as I had previous years with 0 issues. They wanted something in writing. I don't think any of it was legal or necessary because the lady was telling my parents they had to put all kinds of stuff like they knew they were being detrimental to my learning. We're essentially bad parents, etc., etc., etc. Crazy stuff. So my mom gets an idea. She says 100% they aren't writing anything like that. So she looks it up, and it is law that if a student has an unexcused absence, they have to notify the parents. So she started playing dumb and making this lady call her up every single period I missed. Then she would hem and haw about, do I allow him to miss this period, or is it a problem? Let me think. Then she'd make sure it's okay. This one time. But to call me if he misses anything else, because I'm not sure how I'd feel if he missed more, knowing full well that I was missing 3 periods a day every day till I graduated. They finally stopped calling a month before I graduated. It was a solid 5 months of my mom messing with this woman named Sarah. Okay, so for a bit of context, I'm currently in my 5th semester, and this happened to me last semester. In my major, there is this guy. For the sake of the story, I'll refer to him as P. Well, P is known to be a bit of a good-for-nothing person when it comes to doing tasks from my professor, and P is a loner, not the I'm smart, I like to be alone, more like I'm a loner and not very smart one at that. One of our professors is the type which, no matter how good and perfect your tasks are, they rarely give an A. Now, this professor gave us a group project of a writing paper and presenting it for final assignments. And the score for the assignments are used for 40% of the final score of the class. So these assignments are very much the deciding point of whether you pass this class or not, as 60 and below means you failed. The professor gave us a free choice to choose our group members. I chose 2 people that I know could do well, and one other person who was a good friend of one of the 2 people. When the assignments were announced, we got 3 months to do the assignments. As I mentioned earlier, the professor rarely gave an A and mostly gave Bs, or if you're lucky, you can get an AB, which I think is just B+. So me and the other 3 members work on the paper and presentation for 3 months. When the deadline is close, about 4 days into the deadline, we pretty much have finished all of the work and have submitted our assignments. We felt free and unburdened from the assignments, and we thought there would be no problem. Oh, how wrong we are. The day of the deadline, P decided to contact one of the members of our group, asking when we should do the assignments. The person that is contacted by P forwarded his messages to the group chat. All of us are dumbfounded as we didn't even know he joined our group. So I contacted the TA about it. Well, it turns out the last group or so doesn't have enough members, and the TA decided to dissolve the group and scatter the members of said group to other groups. When I asked when this happened, the TA told me it had been dissolved about 2 months prior. The TA then asked me why I'm asking such a thing, so I explained what happened to her. Well, she doesn't like it one bit. She thought we were not reaching out to the members and we were bullying him because he is a loner. I was pretty upset about the TA, but mostly towards P. Turns out P had also contacted the TA about being ignored by the members. So I asked the member that was contacted by P to screenshot all the messages he sent, and the day of the messages, and I forwarded it all to the TA. The TA said she'll talk to P about it. Hours passed by, and the TA asked me to let P join the group chat. So we reluctantly did. When P joins the group chat, he asked which part of the presentation is his to present. Cue a fight between all the group members with P. He wants to present this topic. The person who made said topic rejects that and said it's them. P claims another topic, and another member already claims said topic. Well, after a bit of back and forth, P protested to the TA for not being given the topic to present. Who would have thought that nonchalantly claiming another person's topics would lead you nowhere? Well, because of the paper already being submitted, the TA's suggestion was for P to research a topic that is not on the presentation, and to add that to the presentation slides, so at least P will get the presentation score. He didn't like that one bit. Not only he had to research a topic, but he'd also missed the score of the paper, which is the biggest part of the score. P and the TA argued back and forth until P decided to threaten the TA by saying he would report to the administration about the group for bullying, and the TA and the professor for letting the group bully him. P said something along the lines of, "Where's your credibility as a TA?" Well, the TA didn't like that one bit, and apparently had had enough of P by then. The TA then screenshotted the fight between them and sent it to me. Well, P did report us, at which point the administration contacted the TA for an explanation. After which, the administration asked the group members about why they didn't include him, and so on and so on. Around the time the administration asked us about this, I suddenly remembered that I and P share 4 classes that we are enrolled in, and 2 of the 4 also have group assignments in which me and P are in one group. So I screenshotted all the messages from those 2 group chats, and I showed the administration that in those chats, never did P once mention the current assignments, paper, and presentation, so his claim of us bullying him is invalid, because he never mentioned it until the day of the deadline, and he never contacted other members of the group about it. So the administration decided it was up to the group whether or not to include his name in the assignments, which we didn't. After this whole fiasco ended and the semester was over, when I enrolled this semester, I noticed that P wasn't in any of my classes, nor was he in classes that I'm not in. Well, I did some asking around in the administration. Turns out that P was failing most of his classes last semester, and he'd have to wait for 1 semester so that he could fix his score by re-enrolling in the classes that he failed. So I won't be seeing P this semester until the end. Quite frankly, by the end, we were all a bit peed off with him. 2. I work remotely for a small company, less than 100 employees, and based on my contract, I have to return to the office for a week 4 times a year. The last time I went back up was in November. In the contract, it's laid out that my employer pays 100% of hotel and gas and airfare. Normally, this is an extremely uneventful routine. It's a mid-sized Midwestern city with not much to do. It is what it is. A few months before I went back up, we had our financial audit, and one thing that was pointed out to our accounting department was the lack of controls in purchasing. The way it used to be was every manager and supervisor had a company credit card with a $1,500 balance, and as long as we stayed under that limit, we didn't have to do any kind of purchase orders. After our audit, my accounting team decided to make purchase orders 100% of their focus. Going forward, it doesn't matter what it was, what the situation was. If you didn't have an approved purchase order, you could not make the transaction. All this happened in early October as I was trying to book my hotel for my on-site week in November. Normally, I have freedom in choosing when I go on-site, but I was requested to go on that specific week by my CEO and CFO as we were launching some strategic planning and they wanted me on-site. So I put the purchase order in for the hotel and I don't hear anything back. I forget about it for a couple of weeks, then remember mid-October that I still don't have a hotel room booked. When I initially made the request, it was about $550 for 4 nights. Looking again in mid-October, it was now up to $700 for 4 nights. I look around and notice that same week I'm supposed to go up there, there's a concert in the same city, followed by a big college sporting event in that town. I sent an email to my accounting folks that I need to book a hotel, rates are going up, room availability is going down, yada yada yada. I get a tersely worded email back saying that everyone has different priorities and my purchase order will be addressed once all the ones before it are done. So I sit back and wait and keep checking every other day and keep seeing prices go up. I send a weekly email asking if it's approved yet, and I keep getting absolute silence back. Finally, a week back, before I email my accounting team with the CFO included, saying if I don't book a room that day, there wouldn't be any left, and I wouldn't be able to make it up for the strategic planning work. About 30 minutes later, I get back an email saying, word for word, "You are authorized to reserve a hotel room for 4 nights." Cool, I book it. That $550 room is now over $1,200. I book it and move on with my life, and I don't think anything of it. Last week, I got around to uploading my credit card receipts and submitted my expense report, which included that $1,200 hotel stay. I got a call from my CFO today, just exploding on me. Furious about where the hell did I stay that cost that much and what was I thinking? I very calmly forwarded the original purchase order and all the emails I sent, saying that prices were rising. I had dead silence on the phone as he read through the email chains and just said, "For F's sake," then hung up. At the end of the day, all supervisors got an email that their purchase order system was being shut down until they could figure out how to manage it better. 4. My ex and I broke up a few years ago. He was a terrible boyfriend for so many reasons that I won't bother going into. One of the reasons, though, was that he was a serial cheater. I was young, super sheltered, and as a result very naive, so I stayed way longer than I should have. I had a niche hobby that his girl best friend was also very into. I came across a post on that subreddit in which the story and setting sounded eerily similar to my life. I looked at the OP's profile, and sure enough, it was his best friend, Mary. One of her posts caught me off guard, though. She had posted in a relationship subreddit shortly before the one I found, saying that she was in love with her best friend, and that he and her were going on dates, like movies when he said he was at school studying behind my back, and she made up all sorts of things to try to justify it. For instance, she said that I was a lesbian, and had threatened to leave him for someone at work. She also laid out her plans for one day moving into our apartment. The one that I was paying the rent on, not him? I confronted her about it. It was explosive. She confirmed it was her, but felt righteously justified because they're so in love. And he and I broke up shortly after. It's been about 4 years since then, and I've moved to another state, finished my master's degree, have a great job, and a wonderful boyfriend, the real revenge. But every now and then, I check her Reddit name because the things she posted were so unhinged it was entertaining. I don't know how she seems to have forgotten that I knew of her account. Please note, she is a privileged white girl who grew up in LA to parents who are both professors. When I knew her, she had recently switched her major to art and spent all day crossfaded, drawing nudes of herself. When you think privileged LA white girl who thinks Starbucks being closed is a struggle, oh my god, she is who comes to mind. Totally love those pumpkin spice lattes. So sweet. But in one post, she said she was a single father who just bought his first home after years of struggling to keep a job. And in another, she claims to be a black Muslim woman who's being judged for her religion by her boyfriend's family. In this post, she claimed that her boyfriend's family called her ugly and kicked her out of the house for being an ugly Muslim woman. His sisters really liked me, and I think were glad for my sake when we broke up, so they've kept in touch, even though I didn't really make an effort because I thought that would be weird. A few months ago, one of his sisters reached out and mentioned that they were all going to meet Mary for the first time in person. They also live out of state. She happened to reach me when I was drunk, and I said, "What? I thought you'd already met, given that you kicked her out and called her ugly." Her sister was in total shock and didn't believe me at first. Apparently, they'd never even met her in person. They certainly hadn't called her ugly. I sent her screenshots of the posts, and other posts which clearly show her pets and the area she lives to prove it was really her, and his sister was blown away. Now I no longer have to check her account for my entertainment. Whenever she posts something delusional, his sisters laugh about it together and message me. "Did you know Mary saved the child from drowning? Guess what? Mary suddenly has 4 kids now, and we're all real jerks to them. I never noticed that Mary is Asian. How did we not notice?" Etc. Mary is extremely insecure, and I know it'll be absolutely crushing to her when they ultimately let it slip that they know she's been bashing their family behind their back for 4 years now. She desperately wants approval and acceptance, and I doubt she'll ever get it from them. I think it's hilarious because I feel like I barely did anything. I didn't say anything for almost 4 years, and really, it was a drunken mishap. P.S. Mary posted almost 4 years ago that her boyfriend had started saving for a ring. Yes, right after we broke up. I wonder what's taking so long. 5. I'm 19 and male. My cousin is 49 and female. She has these friends, Sandra and Greg, married, that have over the years been kind of absorbed into my family. Every holiday and social event that would normally just be family, they always had an invitation. I think my cousin had a sort of family meeting with all the people who regularly host family stuff to ask them, but I'm not fully clear on that. Cut to me, 16 years old and looking for my first job, when at one of these family gatherings, Sandra and Greg tell everyone they are opening an ice cream shop. Greg has a local tech company and has been involved with the local government in our small town, as well as owns properties he rents out. I jump at this opportunity, telling them I was looking for a job. A few months later, the place is ready to be open and I have an interview. This should have been my first sign that things would be weird working for them. That may just be in hindsight because I had nothing to compare it to at the time. The interview was at Greg's other company, with a table of 3 interviewers, Greg, Sandra, and their general manager. The questions felt like they were trying to grill me on ice cream facts mostly. And when the interview was said and done, Greg admitted to just messing with me since he knew me. The job was an absolute nightmare. I only worked there for 10 months because I couldn't take it anymore. My opinion of those people changed from neutral to straight-up hatred and disgust. Greg would often talk to all of the teenage, minor employees about their sexual history, tell in-depth stories about his own at our age, and tease the people he knew personally, like me, about my lack of sexual experiences. I vividly remember him talking to me and the 16-year-old female employee about VR porn, and if we wanted to try it one day, and that he had a headset he could lend us. Oh, you would want to put that on. This is on top of the workplace mismanagement. I was the only employee on pay stubs, with most of the other employees on direct deposit, and I would often have to remind him to pay me. He would normally say he just forgot, but it happened almost a dozen times, with my longest wait time being a month and a half. We also had a shirt calendar, where every employee had to wear a certain color work shirt, depending on the day of the week. Many employees were written up for not wearing the correct shirt. Sandra and Greg would also let their friends hang out at the counter, throw pennies in our tip jar one after the other. Every time we got a tip, we rung a bell and cheered. Harass us, ask us personal questions, and a ton of other rude and intrusive stuff. The worst of it all, I came out to my work best friend at the closing shift out back behind the dumpsters, and Greg took the footage from the security cameras and sent it to my cousin, who then sent it to my parents, and it all came to my attention on the day of a huge family wedding, in which both Sandra and Greg attended. This was a common occurrence. Greg got drunk a lot at home by himself and would watch the security cameras and call into the store to micromanage. I have plenty of stories about this place and could go on for ages, but onto the petty revenge. I quit during a season of firings because of a group chat leak that was essentially the employees crapping on the owners and manager, which I was on, but pretty neutral. The revenge comes in through a connection my mom has with this guy Evan, 45. Evan is a high-level stockbroker for a major company, incredibly wealthy and successful, and worked with Greg on the Chamber of Commerce in our town briefly. My brothers and his kids have activities together, so we made conversation sometimes. Fast forward to 2 nights ago. I'm at a family outing to his vineyard for music and drinks, chocolate-covered pretzels for me, when Greg approaches me to ask how my college and work are going. Now that you're Mr. Hollywood. For reference, I work in entertainment as a writer and creative consultant. I told him coldly that things were good, and he proceeded to ask me some condescending questions about my finances, and even went as far as to discourage me from pursuing my career even further, telling me I should drop out of school. Now, I would normally just take this kind of comment from family, but he isn't family. So I decided to say, yeah, well, Evan has been helping me out with my finances, to which his face lit up. My mom told me something a while back about how Greg really idolizes Evan, so I fully took advantage of that and furthered the conversation, saying, yeah, you've actually come up a few times in our conversations, going over old income records. He said, oh, really? Well, what did you tell him? I gave him a blank stare and said, I told him whatever you think I told him. This made his smile drop, and I said, good luck patching that one up. I hear it's hard to get Evan's respect after you lost it, so devastatingly. Wouldn't know, though, he likes me, and I walked away. For more context, I didn't fully lie. Me and Evan had one conversation about Greg, where he basically said he always thought he was a sleazy guy. The first thing I lied about was my changing Evan's opinion of him, which isn't true. Evan never respected him in the first place. My mom was a little upset I stirred the pot after 3 years, but I super don't give a rat's behind. Pay your employees on time and don't change my punch-in code to virgin, and maybe better things will happen to you. Hey everybody, Hellraiser here, and thank you very much for listening to Revenge is Ice Cream, episode 398. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, please do hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already chosen to do so. And do support me on my Patreon page. Even $1 a month is helpful. That is linked in the description. Okay, let's see. No more business today, so let's move on to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is: has laziness while cooking ever made a dish better for you? I discovered that because I really just don't like peeling potatoes, if I buy the kind where I can just give them a good wash, and then slice them up and leave the skins on, it actually makes everything much more yummy leaving the skins on. Also, I rarely bought fresh carrots until I realized I can just give them a scrub as well without having to, scrape and peel them. And I was very glad to figure that out. Let me know what you think in a comment below. And before we go, let's take a look at the answer of the day from a previous video. And today's answer comes from Revenge's Ice Cream 397. And the question here was, are you able to lucid dream? And today's answer comes from Jada Dallas. Most of my dreams are lucid. I don't take control anymore because for me it turns them into recurring dreams. Well, that's fair enough, Jada. I suppose unless it's a dream you're really having a good time in, you wouldn't want to have it every night. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.